the Sharks are finally strong because for the longest time we've been losing those derbies against Stormers, but we've come out on top. Do you think the Sharks are in the ascendancy, or Stormers will catch up?
I don't know, Chuck. I
Mm.
know these are Springboks that play for the Sharks, but these are not the Springboks who play for the Sharks. The Springboks are the Springboks when they play for the Springboks. And they are donning the black of the Sharks.
It's a little different.
I think they play club rugby to stay fit for their commitments to the national side.
Mm.
But maybe this season, especially after winning the the
APCR.
EPCR, right? And Curry Cup as well, no?
Yeah.
Yes. After getting the silver, although the Springboks players weren't involved in that one, we might see them have a campaign that we expect from this group of players because the Sharks team is stacked, man.
Yeah.
Like they have to be in the playoffs of the UCR. They have to be one of the teams that are there in the semifinals and looking to win the whole thing. But it hasn't quite worked out that way. They did manage to beat the Stormers for the first time since 2021, first time in the URC. Should they have won that match though? I don't know, Chuck. And I know Mannie Libbok knocked that ball over, knocked on when he was trying to retrieve the ball from the ruck, and therefore his last gasp winning try was choked off. And starting to feel sorry for Mannie, man.
But it's typical of Mannie Libbok.
You see, this is exactly why I'm starting to feel sorry for him, because that's the sentiment that is typical of Mannie Libbok.
To even get into the position where that try wins them the game, it was magic from Mannie Libbok yet again. So it's the gift and the curse with Mannie Libbok,
Hey,
man.
Chuck, Pepsi Buthelez's hands were in that ruck. The TMO and the ref, they see the knock-on, but they do not see the hands in the ruck. What are we talking about here, guys?
I mean, I think there's another knock-on prior to that one when Mannie was at the base of it. There was someone where it was not the number 9. He put his hands in there and then he went out and the number 9 came. It was like, I know I'm not the TMO, but from my eagle eyes watching from my screen at home, I was like, there's something wrong there. But they found another one. And as a Sharks fan, I'm happy. Anything that you find that's not going to result in us losing, I'm happy.
Chuck, the other thing about Mannie, I think maybe Mannie needs to go play in Japan. Like somewhere where no one is going to see him and no one is going to bother him.
And just build that confidence.
The Springboks coaches will follow him and they'll continue to pick him. Yes, to build up his confidence and to be away from the noise. And I know what it sounds like, that I'm encouraging him to run, but sometimes for your own mental health, maybe it is the best thing to not be in an environment where, one, your confidence is low, right? And it's affecting his performances. We cannot run away from that. And two, every single thing that you do is under a microscope. So you are on a beating to none when it comes to South African rugby fans.
Timber Bavuma place at this point where it's like, if you do something wrong, we'll remember it.
Yeah, and so go to Japan and you'll get to play your running rugby. No one is going to bother you over there, and you're going to get the chance to build your confidence back up again and come back and play for the Springboks looking like a revived version of yourself, right? But in that game with the Stormers, Chuck, and the Stormers are not doing very well in the season of the UCR, a far cry from the heights of when they won the title and they followed it up the next season by getting to the final. I think some of the things that happened in this game, again, entries into the 22 but not converting, this was the same issue. Last season we went to watch them against the Bulls. It was a blowout against the Bulls at Loftus, right? But when you actually watched that game, the amount of times the Stormers were in the 22, convert half of those opportunities, it's a different ball game altogether. Same thing happened. It's handling errors once again. Warwick Galant in the 15, I don't think he is the guy, and here's maybe the counter argument to Mannie Libbok leaving the Stormers, is that you probably need both him and Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu playing in the same side, which would mean that Sasha plays as the 15. I don't want Sasha to play as a fullback because he is the future box number 10, and I want him to play in the fly half position while playing for the Stormers as well. So that means the Stormers will probably have to go find a fullback. And I think the Stormers need to go find quality players, Chuck, in some key positions. At scrum half as well, the Sharks have 2 Springboks who are playing for them. You cannot have 2 scrum halves at the same time on the pitch. So one of those guys, whether it is Hendrickster or it is Grant Williams, the Stormers need to do something. Go sign one of those guys, or maybe Unohamba, and you have somewhat of an answer as well to that 10 cover if you do part ways with Libbok. But the other thing, Chuck, in the game against the Sharks with the Stormers is that lacking pace and dynamism, particularly in the loose trio positions. Evan Ross it was not playing, and the Stormers were missing the Springboks. Ross was not there. Malherbe is out injured. Kitchov is out injured. Fourie is also out injured, and he is also a member of that loose trio. So, in the absence of that kind of talent in that position, it's hard to compete at ruck time. It is hard to make those gains in terms of the advantage line. It's hard to knock these guys back in the tackle. Stormers do need some talent. I do think they need an injection of talent, particularly in those positions that I mentioned. I still would stick with Dobbo. I know some of the fan base want Dobbo to be fired because it's a coaching issue, but I think for me it's always hard to justify firing a guy who's won. Like he's won a title, the only South African team to win the URC, and I know the URC is pretty much in its infancy. Is Dobbo. At Jake White, he went all the way to the final. He has not won it yet. No of the other franchises, no one of the other coaches who coach the other franchises have won the URC, and he's then gone back to a final. So yes, at this point, the Stormers are struggling, and yes, you can look at the coaching and wonder is there other things that they can do better. But I don't think the answer is firing him. Not right now. You give him at least another season, and then you support him by getting him those players and filling those gaps that are very obvious in my eyes where the Stormers are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, as a Sharks fan, I'm happy that we won. I think those two tries gave us that lead that we deserved because I think we were the better team on the park. Obviously, Mannie Libbok had a say in the match for good and for bad, unfortunately. But I just think those Springboks came to the fore. Easthuizen looks good. He crossed the try line. Sias is playing well again. He crossed the try line. Fassi, yes. Oh, yes. I think he was probably the man of the match, but he had a blinder.
That interception by the line where he gambles to shoot out of the defensive line and he gobbles it up.
Yeah.
But then he took the gamble again later and it didn't pay off and they almost lost it. But you live and you die by the sword, I guess.
It was a
if
close
you are
game,
the head of the Church of Fassi.
Those guys, Church of Fassi, those guys, the Springboks stood up and they were counted. Trevor Nyakani is your Oxes as well. I'm waiting for Umkhunu to be there because I like the big boys. I also like I know it's completely left field, but Untlabaganye from the Lions, my boy.
That's my boy.
Because
big
he's
boy
big, right?
doing big
but
things.
He's mobile. He's there.
That's the guy.
That's the guy as well. I agree with you at that one. But I think, Jay, I do agree with the Stormers because they did have entries into the 22 to the 10-meter mark, but again, as you said, they didn't convert. And I think yes, good on the Sharks' defense, but sometimes you have to find a way. Either there's a short ball or to the blind side, or you kick, which Mannie did to try find a bit of magic. I think they need to find a way, and I think there's a mental block, and I know injuries play a big part to that as well. Because if you have certain players, then you don't have to think as much because they've got the excellence, you know. So I think sometimes they have that mental block in terms of what to do next. But I think they'll come good, man. I don't think the Stormers are a bad side. They'll come good eventually.